It's said that politics makes strange bedfellows, and we saw two very unusual bedfellows just a few weeks ago. Take a look.
He wants to see housing being built. He wants to see rents coming down, all things that I agree with.
Now, they came together on housing. Housing, now that might seem surprising, but at the same time, one of the main affordability crises in the country is housing, and that both Mamdani and Trump would agree that supply is a big part of the problem. Well, let's just say this, they're not wrong.
The so-called affordability, particularly housing affordability, is very real. It's very urgent. It's a worsening problem in the United States. In the old pyramid of the American dream, owning a home sat at the very top, a defining milestone and the clearest path to generational wealth. But for millions of ordinary Americans, that pyramid has crumbled.
Now, Trump's answer to this problem apparently is to drive up the costs of housing. His tariffs are driving up the cost of building materials. His deportation policy are deporting construction workers. Everything he's done so far is merely raising the cost and constricting the supply of new housing. On the other hand, there are some really good ways to try to wrestle this problem literally to the ground. And one of them is to incentivize developers, incentivize the production of millions and millions of new homes. We need another housing boom in America. We haven't really built millions and millions of new houses since the post-World War II period, when we did build millions of houses every year for these returning GIs. And we need to do that again. So I think key to solving the housing affordability crisis is improving the supply of housing, but also key to solving the homelessness epidemic is also building new housing. You can spend billions on moving those who are without a home from a sidewalk into a home and still not solve the problem, because new people will simply take their place on the street unless you're building a lot more homes, unless you're bringing down the cost of housing. This housing affordability crisis is real. In fact, the percentage of families that are rent burdened or mortgage burdened, home burdened, has gone up astronomically. To put it another way, to put it in a different historical perspective, or maybe a personal perspective, when I was a kid, my father was in the clothing business. He was essentially a traveling salesman. He made $18,000 a year. That was the sole family income when I was a kid. My parents bought our first home for $18,000. You could buy a home for the annual income of a clothing salesman. Can you imagine? Today, of course, that would be impossible. Back when I was a kid, the average age of someone buying a new home was 23 years old. Today, the average age is 40.
A third of all American households spend more than 30% of their income on rent or mortgage payments. Rent has increased 35% since the start of COVID lockdowns. The median age of a first-time homebuyer in America is now 40 years old.
This is a sign of just how bad the situation has become. To put it another way, it costs nearly $3,000 a month to rent an average apartment in California. Almost $3,000 a month. Who can afford that? The median home price of a home in most communities in California is nearly $1 million. That is beyond reach for most families. We cannot continue this way. And if you look at this chart, it says an awful lot about the housing problem, because you can see even since the 70s, we're building fewer and fewer homes each year. That has got to change. Now, I'm introducing the Housing Boom Act. This is a landmark bill that will dramatically increase the incentives, the tax incentives to build new housing. There's something called the Low-Income Housing Tax Credit. It's called LIHTC. And without getting too much into the weeds, it essentially provides an incentive to build affordable housing. Look, there's plenty of luxury housing, and there's a good enough market for luxury housing that people are still building it. The problem is people are not building housing that's affordable. It doesn't pencil out. This bill would provide the tax incentive necessary. That credit, that tax credit called LIHTC, has been capped, meaning after you get to a certain point, it's not available for any other new homes. My bill would triple the cap. In California, for example, about half the projects that apply to get this kind of financing don't get it because you've reached the cap. So we could potentially double the supply of new affordable housing in California simply with this expansion of that tax credit. Now, not just this, but the bill also includes new grants and incentives to build middle-income housing, to build housing for workforce. So it has a lot of other components as well. It also increases the supply of housing vouchers for veterans. But the primary aim of the Housing Boom Act is to increase supply. Now, this isn't the complete answer, I will acknowledge. There are other things that need to be done too. We have to constrain, for example, the corporate purchase of real estate. Large companies, investment banks are getting in the business of buying up properties so that they can raise rents, raise property values, make profit off it, but it is placing average families in a competition with big banks and financial institutions that are paying cash for homes. And there's no way that average families can compete with that. Reminds me a bit of this scene from It's a Wonderful Life.
The working and paying and living and dying in this community. Well, is it too much to have them work and pay and live and die in a couple of decent rooms and a bath?
So we've got to put real reins on this corporate takeover of housing. We're also seeing corporations use artificial intelligence to set rents in a way that they can find out what is the maximum rent they can charge in the whole community, and then it essentially increases all the rents up to that maximum level. That kind of price fixing, we have to put a stop to that as well. In addition to those challenges to housing, we also have to make sure that at the local level, we get housing approvals much more quickly. That is, when people want to build a new home, that we're able to do it, we're able to move quickly through the permitting process. We bring the timelines down, we bring the costs down so that we can give a green light to more and more housing. This is what it's going to take. And none of this should be beyond our reach. None of it is beyond our reach. Look, after World War II, we were able to build millions and millions of new homes. There is no reason why we can't do that today, and we simply must. I would love to see in the future a reel in real time that looks a bit like this reel from the 1940s.
Today, as never before, the United States is thinking about housing, planning for it, talking about it. Need for new housing and construction of every kind is at peak level. For 4 years, no building of any sort, except that directly connected with the war effort, had been done. And now the demand for all kinds of living quarters has piled up so high, 1.5 million new homes are scheduled to blossom forth every year for the next 10 years. 15 million new homes. And Americans are in a position to pay the bill. Yes, economically, America is ready.
So let's get to work. Let's get this done. Let's build stuff and let's build it fast. And most importantly, let's build it cost effectively so that we can once again put the American dream within the reach of American families. So thanks for watching tonight's video. We started doing these nightly videos as a way of identifying something really important that happened today or this week, what we should make of it, and how we can fight back. As you can see, I like to include movie clips. If you have any suggestions for other movie clips I should include in future videos, please share them with us. And thank you for following along.